I love peanut butter and jelly.
I know.
Welcome to the Real New York Film Festival, 13th showcase of local independent film and video. I'm Rebecca Carroll at the Pioneer Theater in the East Village. We've selected 29 works for this year's festival, and you can cast your vote for your favorite at the Real New York Festival website at 13.org. Tonight we have 3 short feature films that examine the subject of love and obsession. We begin the evening with Rubber Souls, a tender story about a schoolyard crush. The film was made by director Christine Turner.
Rubber Souls is an adolescent love story. It's sort of about the things you do when you want to impress somebody. I was inspired by a lot of things, my own experiences, my own passions growing up, and of course James Brown. And I shot the film in Harlem using a cast of primarily non-actors from around the neighborhood. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy.
It's my pleasure to introduce the director of Seibutsu, Joe Turner Lin. Welcome.
Hi.
First, tell me, what does Seibutsu mean, and what is the origin?
Seibutsu is Japanese, and it means still life.
How did you come upon the project? How did it start?
I'd written a feature version of it a long time ago called Still Life, and it was sort of more of a romantic comedy at the time. It was lighter in tone, and it was about a guy who falls in love with a picture of a girl in a photomat.
I grew up in Miami in the 80s, and in a very Cuban household, and, you know, the way that we dealt with, you know, things that were good or bad was through humor. In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan was a god on earth, you know, so every household, there'd be a picture of Jesus, of the Pope, and of Reagan. And the way that actually that women, especially, you know, like the old, you know, some of the mothers and grandmothers and things like that would talk about Reagan, it was almost sexual. They would say, "Oh, what a man."
And the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, open this gate.
I'm a Russian Jewish immigrant. I've been in New York for 18 years. And my short film, Naturalized, it was inspired by something that a relative went through. And it's about identity and the different facets of identity, which can be spiritual and cultural and ultimately physical.
I'm here to prep Michael Rabinowitz for circumcision.
Excuse me, can you not be sued for making unnecessary surgery, Mr. Suleiman Al-Khassavi? Am I to assume you are a Muslim?
Excuse me?
You see, you want to be like a Muslim? Do you know that little girls in Sudan getting their clitorectomies this minute, as we speak?
What does that mean?
What that means? That means be thankful that you have a genital.
He wants to be a real Jew.
I'm not a real Jew. You should have said that to my classmates in the 2nd grade who used to beat the shit out of me.
The city looks totally different when you're on a bike, totally different. And so I think it's beautiful. It is reminiscent of being a kid, you know, this kind of freedom of like just you're in the wind and it's hot and you just ride your bike and it's great. Well, I don't wear a helmet, which is totally bad. I assume I'm going to get hit by a car every second. And so you just have to be incredibly defensive and trust your instincts, and if you're scared, don't do it. I wanted to make a film that was sort of an homage to Warriors. Warriors is a film made in 1979 by Walter Hill, and it was all about these gangs in New York. It's a cult classic. And I thought, as New York is just becoming more and more gentrified, there's not that much of that kind of stuff left. And I thought what still sort of existed that was like that were bicycle gangs. And we did a casting on Craigslist, and these groups and these characters just came out of the woodwork.
Black Phantom, 1951. Twin Jaguar, 1965.
Well, we're at Curtis Wheeler's favorite museum, which is the Cloisters Museum. It's where he went when he was a child and throughout his whole life, up until the time of his death. And it's also my favorite museum as well. It's a place where I go and read and study and write and find solitude. I met Curtis in 2000, and we instantly became friends. Our friendship changed into sort of a mentor relationship or dynamic, where he really taught me about life, quite simply. I listened to his stories and all about his past, and we learned to trust each other. And it was only about after a year that we both decided we're going to make a film together. We would stay up until 3, 4, 5 in the morning, talk about art, talk about Britney Spears. He'd joke a lot. And also we talked about his illness, about being sick.
I always enjoyed taking photos of people and just kind of more documentary photography. But then that kind of led to just documentary films, because I feel like the film element, making a documentary film really adds the storytelling part. I really wanted to make a documentary, and I started thinking about the topics. And in the end, I think I decided I wanted to do something that's very personal, but not about me. I felt, because of my whole experience, like slowly becoming an artist, I really wanted to meet and get to know some Chinese artists. I decided on Zhang Hongtu and Zhang Tianjun. They're actually two very different contemporary artists, and they're both New York-based, and these two artists are kind of close to my parents' generation. So that was even more incredible, just that they come from this era of the Cultural Revolution where art is completely, purely for political purposes.
My father, he is an artist in Philadelphia. He makes these giant mosaic tile murals. And when I was 19, my mother demanded that I make a movie about him. Make a movie about your father, kind of thing. And I went to West Virginia to record his stories, and Coney Island is one of his stories.
Every day my mother would bring me to the seashore. She would put on her lotion, tan herself. She loved the color brown. I remember her looking down at me and her breath.
The Real New York Film Festival continues next Thursday night, and if you go online, you can see previews and vote for your favorite films. Winners will be featured in a special show this vall. I'm Rebecca Carroll at the Pioneer Theater in the East Village.